Hello, everyone. I'm Betsy Dalton from the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of South County. I serve as chair of the Disability Justice Subcommittee of our social justice team, and I am here with my UUCSC colleague and friend, Myron Waldman. We are happy to share this story of our commitment to accessibility, from inspiration to reality. Have you ever had this experience where someone tries to explain something to you, but you become lost after the first sentence? While I have lots of experience in the disability and technology fields, this certainly doesn't make me an expert in any other area. At the church coffee hour, someone came up to me to tell me about her investment strategy. Frankly, I was lost after the first sentence. I knew nothing about the exchange funds, so I was lost. And I felt badly about not really understanding her situation. As the conversation continued, I realized that I would never catch up. Later, I realized I really didn't have the courage to tell her what I was experiencing. Honestly, I was fearful of being wrong. Me with a PhD, lots of published papers, and professional friends around the world. Well, that night, I realized that I was guilty of doing exactly the same thing that I had experienced, putting others in a position of fear due to the lack of knowledge. For years, I pressed the board to add an automatic door to our building entrance ramp. It was a simple accommodation that would make possible for someone in a wheelchair or with other mobility needs to enter our building on their own. It made great sense to me, but my position was never embraced by the board. Shortly afterwards, I became a member of the Board of Trustees and was again focused on getting my automatic door opener. A few things stood in the way. First, the board needed to recognize and feel the real need for this automatic door. And second, they needed to solve the money issues that came with it. Then the unexpected happened. I became dependent on using a walker because of the severe arthritis in my knees and hips. I was no longer able to enter the church building on my own. And this was important to me because I found myself at the church at least 3 times a week. My shift from temporarily abled, as most of us are, to temporarily disabled proved to be the perfect example to get my point across as to why we needed the automatic door opener. The board and others could relate to the need much better now. They could see how this could and likely would happen to others. They ended up agreeing to move forward because of our shared recognition of need. But we still had to face the money questions. Here too, opportunity and creativity helped out. We found out about a local grant to support accessibility. A few board members got together, spent some personal time putting together the information to make our case, and happily we were successful in getting the help. The grant was partial, but then it was matched by church funds, which were approved by the board, and we could finally get our automatic door opener. Since the installation a few years ago, we've seen more people with mobility challenges come to our church. Several of these folks have shared how happy they feel to be at UUCSC because they feel they are truly welcome. The door opener is a tangible sign that we want everyone to come. It was a $5,000 investment that really paid off for us because we attracted many more people. Dealing with my visible disability this time really paid off, but What about invisible disabilities? Myron Waldman, a member of our congregation, is spearheading a unique approach to getting more hearing loops into the Rhode Island community. His approach is to get the state to cover up to half the cost of the hearing loops in private venues through grants in an effort called Hearing Loop Rhode Island, which is now supported by the Governor's Commission on the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. Myron?
Thank you, Betsy. Over the past 15 years, I tried to get accommodations for people like me. Actually, I'm deaf. Without clear acoustics, there's an echo-free environment that I really need. I hear the voices, but I can't understand the words. I kept coming to UU services because of the music and the fellowship, but could not hear much else during our services. In years past, I could never seem to get across to our church board what was so important to me. That was the ability to understand the words spoken during Sunday services. Since I struggled with profound hearing loss most of my life, I made a study of it and created devices that I needed in order to get past just survival in a hearing world. Even though it is fairly a common disability, hearing loss is indeed invisible and still very poorly understood. Unless I tell someone that I do not hear well, they will color me thick, antisocial, uncaring, among other things. So in church, it was not uncommon to see me express different emotions as others for the simple reason that one reflects what they hear. And it was kind of embarrassing. I needed to fix this. Asking for people to care about an invisible disability doesn't work. They just cannot relate to something they can't experience. I needed to make it visible. Here's what happened. I asked the board for a small fund to cover the cost of 2 small speakers to be placed at ear level close to 4 pews. They agreed. I installed them with a wall sign inviting people who wanted to hear better to seat themselves near the speakers. After many months, people migrated from the rear, yes, the rear of the church to sit near the speakers. I found that people with and without hearing aids claimed these new seats. I made a point to talk about hearing loss of people that move their seating. I wanted to bring hearing loss from silence to discussion, as I needed to know how they were benefiting from the change. This gave hearing loss some visibility. The sign and the speakers could not be overlooked at this point. I figured that I made hearing loss visible enough for my next step. This is when Betsy became the president of the Board of Trustees. She was familiar with hearing loss issues and technology. I asked her to support an effort to have an induction hearing loop system installed in the main sanctuary. She agreed that it was important and supported the idea. These systems typically cost over $6,000 and are coupled with an existing sound system because the sound system uses microphones. Good microphones are a requirement for a decent hearing loop system. Why a hearing loop? These special systems work with 70% of hearing aids. There's no need for a special receiver or headset device. It's discrete. The sound quality makes it possible to understand the speaking voice better than any other technology. It works anywhere in the room, and no one will know that you're using it. I made my presentation to the board with Betsy as president, knowing that I also needed another advocate to assure the funding of this project. No committee offered to fund the hearing loop. I was hoping that one of the hearing aid users on the board would add strong support. Unfortunately, none did. I was about to leave the meeting when one board member stood up and with great enthusiasm and conviction carved the path for the funds for the project. She was the board president when Betsy got her automatic door opener for a ramp entrance. She inspired the board to agree to bypass the budget, get others to personally donate funds for this project. We were able to install a system well under the expected costs due to volunteer help. That was a few years ago. Since that time, there's hardly a service where someone does not thank me for the hearing loop. The high quality microphones that were acquired during this process are wireless mics, and now serving additionally to help our minister and others to move easily around the congregation and involve others and still be heard. Here is a picture of the equipment that we installed. And you'll see we have the audience loop driver, wireless mic receivers. We also installed the choir loop driver, and that little device is on the left. And here is how we wired the sanctuary. This simple wire was passed around the room, and that's what created the coupling to the hearing aids for the great sound. So last year, I came up with a plan to improve the sound quality for everyone by adding lots of small speakers. The plan was approved. Speakers were installed. Now there is not a service. Someone does not come up to me and thank me for the better sound. At the end of the session, on the ending screen, copy down the URL. It includes a short, extraordinary video that lets you experience hearing segments of a church service with and without a hearing loop. Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you very much, Myron. So in both of our stories, we relied on visibility to get our points across. We also learned that on issues of accessibility, persons with disabilities may not necessarily be our best supporters. Supporters often come from unexpected places and for many different reasons. Just as I had blanked out when my fellow parishioner brought up the investment funds, people on church boards and committees can do the same thing. To really get our different points across, we made the experiences real enough to strike home by adding a strong visibility component for both visible and invisible disabilities. You can't miss the automatic door entrance or the entry signs describing the sanctuary hearing loop and how to use it. Our congregation takes pride in its commitment to accessibility now. They really do. Most recently, several members of our facilities committee made sure that we expanded our handicap accessible parking spaces from just 2 to now 6 spaces. We needed these to support the increase in folks now coming to our services. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Accessibility does not and should not end with just getting in the front door. Accessibility of materials, attitudes, and opportunities to connect must always be part of our concerns and our planning. There are so many ways in which people differ, and these differences really build our diverse communities. Our attendance at church before COVID-19 was at record highs. People feel more comfortable bringing guests of all levels of ability because this church clearly demonstrates both willingness and commitment to accommodate and to welcome everyone. And we can continue our commitment to accessibility. So please take time to copy the link to online resources at the end of this video. There you will find information and ideas to help with accessibility at your church. Thank you very much for letting Myron and I share with you the story of our commitment to accessibility. Thank you.